So, good evening and welcome to the Merrimack School Board budget hearing tonight, January 10th, 2017. If you could join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, and I will announce item number 3, which is public participation, but since no public is in attendance, we will close public participation and go on to item number 4, which is proposed budget reduction. And Matt, you and I are going to pitch this one, but I will turn the floor over to you to talk about it.
As you recall, in the operating budget, there's around $612,000 for the roof at Thornton's Ferry Elementary School. We customarily, as we always do, anticipate these projects and go out to bid and come up with specifications. We have a contract. We have a consultant from the roofing manufacturer who does the specifications for us and conducts walkthroughs of invited contractors to bid on the roof. We had a bid opening this past Thursday and last Thursday, the 5th, and those bids came in. There were a couple that were high, one that was moderately priced, and another one that allowed us to save around $35,000. So we're comfortable. We have to vet the contractor. All the contractors are pre-screened, but we wanted to have another conversation with him before we went forward with it to make sure that, yes, indeed, he understood the scope of the project and everything like that according to the walkthrough, and that he was ready to go and would be willing to agree to our terms that, wait until the budget passes and then we can go forward with the job. So we can comfortably reduce the operating budget by $35,000 because of the roof.
Excellent. Are there any questions? Andy?
So if you do the second level of vetting with the contractor and you're not comfortable with the one that gave you the lowest bid, are you going to use that lowest bid to entice another vendor to hit at that level? I mean, if we cut the $35,000 out, but we end up needing it because the contractor wasn't the right one, how are we going to handle that?
Oh, we're at this point in time confident that the contractor is the right one.
Okay. I was just curious, your comment about vetting them again. I didn't know if there was a result.
There's a pre-screening that's done before these people are invited to bid. Mm-hmm. Then after the bid results are known, then there's another conference that we have just to make sure that they understand the scope. They've already signed on the dotted line as far as they will do the work. And so this is just a secondary precaution that they know exactly what they were doing, and that was handled last week. So there's no issue with us going to another contract.
I just want to make sure that I'm comfortable with the cut, as long as we're comfortable that
we're very comfortable with the decision.
And that the quality of the roof's the same. Because you talked last time about the quality of the vendor and the reputation of the vendor being the right one. So when we got that really good low offer to do the whole roof, you were comfortable with the quality of what you would get.
Yes.
I'm assuming that's the case with this.
Same thing here. Yes, correct.
Okay, are there any other questions or comments from the board? So at this point, we would need to just, I guess, make the adjustment in the book since we haven't voted on anything. And if Matt, if you would do us the favor of telling us what the budget would be with that adjustment, I think you.
Yep, it would be. This includes the federal funds and food service. $73,673,057.
And the increase is what percent now?
It was 1.96. Now it's 1.91.
And we're all comfortable of making that adjustment to the budgets before we bring it to vote next week? Excellent. Okay, so with that, we will go on to the next item, which is discussion about possible warrant articles. So it's still us, Matt.
Yep.
So I know we talked about some of the projects that we've traditionally put in the operating budget. We're taking this opportunity where it's necessary and borderline urgent, but not to the point of being imperative, where we couldn't operate the district without these adjustments, to put it to the voters to see how they feel. So things like paving, asbestos removal, things that would normally be in our operating budget. We have now talked about not putting in the operating budget, which we haven't, and putting it in warrant articles. And we went through those in our PowerPoint that Tom and Matt presented a couple weeks ago during the maintenance presentation. So right now, the first project that we talked about was the Merrimack High School paving, which is the bus loop, which would be $234,174. But we would take out the patching, because right now in our operating budget, we do have patching, because that cannot be avoided if we don't do the paving. So the actual total net of the bus loop would be $196,174. Are we as a board comfortable with putting that forward as a warrant article? Andy?
So I just want to make sure I understand. We talk about the patching that's in the operating budget. Isn't it to do a little more than just patch? Isn't it to reconstruct that one section that's collapsing so that we're doing it right and not just doing some sort of a Band-Aid?
Yeah, that's correct, because it is dipping down a little bit, so there'd be some structural work going on as reinforcing that embankment,
So
the 38,000.
I know the warrant article will talk strictly about the paving of the bus loop. If we get into an interrogative where we tell the voters the details behind it, I'd like us to not use the word patching, but rather reconstructing a failing section of the bus loop
Okay.
in the operating budget, and the rest is the things around it, just so we're clear.
And then we also talked about O'Gara Drive and O'Gara Drive sidewalk. And in our deliberations earlier, as we were reviewing high-ticket maintenance items, we were talking about foregoing that as a consideration to consider what we may do long-term with our SAU SPED office, and where that may be impacted, or a good tie-in for that project, for paving at least. Not the building itself, but the paving and the grading, if we decide to put it where the skate park and there, et cetera, is now. So it may have made sense for us to consider foregoing it. How do we feel about that at this point? Michael?
So I just want maybe a little bit more clarification on this, because obviously we have not come close to even deciding where the school, the building might go or at this point. So we might be talking 2 to 3 years at this point, or another 12, like it's been since I've been here. But so my question is that if we continue 2 years down the road and we don't fix this road, is it going to actually continue to increase costs? So the question would be, do we fix 80% of it and just leave that strip kind of undone with that area to kind of, not continue to kick it down? Like, because I know that, Bedford, you go through Bedford, and when they redo a road, they have to redo the whole thing because they've kicked it so far down the road. And I have to use a different language here. They've kicked it so far down the calendar that they have to literally redo the whole road. Surface, scrape it, grade it, everything. So if you can catch this before it's totally degraded, you can actually save money by not having to do so much structural stuff. So are we on that level where we have to do it all anyways at this point, or can we save money by doing it now versus later?
Well, I think that road is in a lot better condition than what Lyons Road was. And when we did Lyons Road at Reeds Ferry Elementary School, we did a reclaiming of the pavement. We grooved it. We did a pulverizing of it, and then we repaved, and it came out great. So this road being in a little bit better condition, we could do the same sort of thing without doing a total reconstruction. So I'm thinking if you wanted to wait a few years, you still would not be looking at a total reconstruction of that road, and it would still be better than the condition of Lyons Road, where Reed's Ferry Elementary School is. So I think you're fairly safe as far as that goes with Lyons Road.
So we have time
Just-
to buy on this?
Yes.
Still? Does that answer your question, or Andy?
So, to carry on sort of Mike's conversation, so, some of it's worse than others. When you get closer to Babusk Lake Road, it's better, but when you get further down, especially the section when you get from Mastercola entry down further, there's a lot of work. That's where the worst part is when you drive. So, the question I have is if we decided to do it or decided to put that part of the warrant out for consideration, do we need to have the sidewalks and the repaving at the same time? Because I know that when we were talking about it, we were concerned about where the sidewalk placement would go and where we would cut a curb and what it would do to the parking for the kids that use the mud pit area and things like that. Can we safely do just the repaving and put that out as a warrant, and then later on do the sidewalk afterwards, or do they need to be considered at the same time?
No, it'd be perfectly acceptable to separate them out and do the sidewalk at a later time. It's two different pieces basically of equipment when you're talking about it. So a big company like Continental would come and do the roadway, and then you have a whole different crew that would come in and do the sidewalk. So there's no real economies of scale of doing them both together. I will mention one thing, that the sidewalk is part of the town center committee master plan to complete the walking loop around that area. And in speaking with Nelson Disco, the chairman of the town center committee, he just informed us that the town received a grant to complete a sidewalk going down Woodbury to further complete that walking area. So, just to give you that information.
Ski lift. Just to finish my thought on this one. So, I'm thinking out loud here is that, first of all, when we talk about the bus loop, I personally believe that needs to be a standalone warrant article in and of itself, nothing else attached to it. We could consider putting O'Gara Drive out as its own warrant article to potentially get a lower cost because paving goes up every year. I think that if we did do the building there, the bigger impact is where you would cut for the sidewalks and the curbing and things like that versus the paving of the main road. So I would be in support if the board wanted to consider to having the bus loop as one more article and maybe just the paving only as another, and let the voters decide whether it's the appropriate year to do it or not. Sort of give them a choice this time. I mean, that's something just to talk about, but I would allow that to happen, and that way the voters could chime in.
So, just to clarify, you would say, and I'm just framing it, bus loop is one, which would be 196,174. The next one would be O'Gara Drive paving at 186,884. You would not put the sidewalk as part of that, so that would be it's separate there, and then on to other projects as we're going to talk about later. Michael?
So I'm in agreement with Andy that I think the sidewalk would actually be pretty much demolished if we were to put a building there. I wouldn't say demolished, but a lot of it would be ripped up, redone, readjusted, and everything like that. So we'd be spending money for something that would have to be redone later on. With the paving, it would only be a section, probably for piping or something like that. Likelihood, maybe. I mean, I personally think that if we actually paved from where the Mastercola Elementary School loop is beyond and just kind of left that section, that might be a possibility too. I'm not sure if that's feasible or makes sense financially or anything like that, but that might be another option. But I'd be okay with going with the O'Gara Drive, but I agree that the sidewalk should probably be held off until we actually do know whether we're going to put a building there or not.
Are there any other? Cinda?
I mean, I would just say that as much as I will support O'Gara Drive, I don't feel like this year is the right year to bring that to the voters. I think that considering what happened with the budget for this year, and some of the catch-up that we're doing based on that, I feel like we've got a good plan to address safety issues, and even to present some other items to the public. I just don't feel like this is the right year. I would rather kind of know what we're doing with that whole spot, and then make the decision. And so I think it's something that I would definitely support, if I were to be on the board next year. But for this year, I'd rather not.
Yes, Naomi.
I don't have much, I have no experience with the voter patterns when it comes to warrant articles, but I was wondering, the more there are, the more likely people would be, it seems to me, to choose only one. So perhaps we want to make sure that we're providing some kind of sense of our own priority within them.
Okay, Michael?
I think that based off of the sentiment from last year's budget, I actually think that by giving the voters more of a voice, which is actually breaking up the warrants, is what they're asking for based off of what they stated last year. So I'm in belief that by actually giving them choices and giving them the right to whether choose or not to choose on some of these projects actually is what they're looking for. So, you know, like, I kind of agree that we could probably wait for 1 year, but if the taxpayers decide that they want to do it this year, then they definitely can if we present it correctly, saying, hey, this is why we would put it forward this year. And, you know, we're trying to see if there is cost savings in the future, but, you know, we do feel that there is a possibility. But you're giving them that choice versus actually putting it in the budget, which is obviously what I think the downfall was last year for some of the items. So by giving them pieces to choose from, I actually personally think it's more of a positive than, you know, what you've stated. So
Andy, then Cinda? I have a couple opinions, but that's crazy. But.
They're no, you can't. I can see both points, and the problem is that, so if let's assume we have 4 warrant articles out here, okay? We know that, at least I know, that the most important paving project is the bus loop. I wouldn't want to create an environment where somebody would choose O'Gara Drive over the bus loop. I think it's more important to do the bus loop in front of the school than the O'Gara Drive, just because of the criticality. We don't have enough experience with these warrant articles to be able to put them and do them in such a way that the real urgency is sort of prioritized, if you will, right? So we're venturing a little bit into a new area for the school board anyway, with having multiple warrant articles. So hearing what Cinda and Naomi have said, even though it's good to give choice, I agree. If we avoided the road for this year and just did 1 paving, 1 asbestos, 1 capital reserve fund, that would probably be a good first step, I think. I mean, you're right. I mean, give them choice so they can choose all 4 if they want, saying it's the right year, cheaper to spend. But on the other hand, unless we have a clear way to say, if you're going to choose the bus loop in this and get that word out, you know, that's the risk we run. So,
Cinda?
You know, what I was going to say was definitely very similar to how you just responded. But I think that that's really the issue is I feel like it's clouding up some of the higher priority items that we have as a board with other options. And at the end of the day, we will vote whether we support it or not, and that will be on the documentation, the voter's guide that we give to them. And it's very difficult to say, well, this is our first choice, this is our second choice, this is our third choice. So, you know, I just feel like I think the voters look to us to bring them the items that are of the highest priority and be very prudent with how we do that. And there's all sorts of discussion, and that's what we discuss here at this table. But I just don't feel like that is, in my opinion, a good choice to bring to the voters this year.
And the one thing I was going to add is I think that there's still a lot of information we're waiting to get from the Planning and Building Committee with some of their charges, and the influence that the content that they're going to provide us is going to make a better informed decision about where we put the building, how we manage O'Gara Drive. You know, we're talking about the SEU sped building because our last critical conversation really did identify the end of O'Gara as the best location. However, we've also gotten some feedback from our planning board that maybe a consideration should be made for the high school. So I think this will give us some time to decide what might be formulating based on what planning and building research brings us and the resources that they bring in to bring those reports. And with time comes knowledge, with knowledge comes clarity, with clarity comes a well-informed and well-presented item for the voters. Andy?
So this is a question for Matt on the bus loop. So I know the town repaved McElwain Street just past the green building, right? The repaving McElwain just past the green building, stopped at the beginning of the loop that we would then pave for a period, and then we would stop. When we talk about the back of the bus loop, what is the will the paving go around the green building, or will it start like where the entrance to the maintenance building is? Here's the reason I'm asking, is because we're holding off on the decision of O'Gara Drive because of the potential move. We also know that something will happen to the green building, plus one of the considerations is around the high school at the end. Are we paying for paving that would be in jeopardy for one part of the bus loop? I mean, does the bus loop paving project cover all the way around the green building, including the SAU sped parking lot, or does it start at a certain point behind it?
Yeah, it's not the parking lot. It would be the actual, when the buses come in the morning and they take that left off of McElwain, that's the start of the bus loop. In that area, you go in back of the greenhouse, and then you go on the left, the easterly side of the high school, all the way around, and then all the way in front of the high school as it meets McElwain. We wouldn't be redoing the parking lot of the SAU
My
office.
only comment is that to be prudent and show that we're sort of thinking, and also maybe to save a few dollars. I mean, it won't be significant, but it's every little bit counts. Maybe if we started the paving sort of just past the parking lot where the superintendent parks, and then did the bus loop from there, that way we reduce the risk of putting paving. I mean, it's only like a couple 100 feet probably max, but still, it's a cost. You see what I mean?
Yeah, but there is an area right beside where the rear parking areas are. How do I describe this?
Is it right before where the maintenance lot is?
Yeah, it's before where the maintenance lot, where there's a big dip and there's a lot of water that collects. So that needs to be, from that point, that needs to be reconstructed, a culvert pipe
Okay.
put in and whatnot, because there's a significant dip in that area.
And that's part of the budget for the,
Yeah.
okay,
Correct.
okay.
And so that takes it back even
Right.
further to where the greenhouse is.
Okay, I'm just trying to think out loud of ways we can economize this
Yeah.
and stuff, but you're probably right, because even if the green building goes away and we turn it into something else, the road will still have to go around the back of the school.
Right.
So we just need to be careful about keeping it intact if we're going to invest in it.
Oh,
That's all.
absolutely.
Okay, sorry. Figure it's better to ask the questions now.
No, I'm glad you asked the question, because it then gave me the opportunity to talk about that big unintended swale in the pavement we've got to get rid of, so.
So, well, hopefully they're watching at home, so that would be great if, we're getting the word out. So are there any other questions about O'Gara? Do we collectively at this point feel that the paving warrant would only include the bus loop, less the patch budgeted for, which would be $196,174? So majority says, I'm getting 4 nods, and probably not. Okay, yes, we're talking about paving.
Just the top piece.
Yep, so we're just talking about putting a warrant together that will cover 196,174. Okay, so Matt will put together a warrant that addresses that, and then we'll have that for a future meeting. So it will go to legal first to make sure it will satisfy the DRE's preferences and how we word things, and be able to be enforced. Of course, if selected. So we have to get there first. So with that, the next item was asbestos removal. And when Matt and Tom came to us, we talked about wrapping up the asbestos removal, which has been, again, when you talk about kicking a can, it's a can from, I think, possibly the 90s, maybe early 2000s. So that's a pretty rusty can right now. But it's the last project that would wrap up asbestos removal for the district. And in that, we have to look at the space effective would be the Family and Consumer Science Room. So that's why, if you look at what we saw, the counters that were falling apart anyway in the cabinets, underneath that is asbestos flooring. So we would have to pull that out to get rid of the asbestos anyway. So it's kind of killing 2 birds with 1 stone if you're going to get the asbestos done. So, and if, again, we want to put asbestos in our rearview mirror and just look forward without that anymore. It's gone on way too long. I mean, way too long. So what we have is the removal of 32,756 square feet of asbestos and countertop and cabinet replacement. So the removal is $265,000 because it's a very specialized project. The countertop and cabinet replacement comes in at $45,000, as we discussed. So the total asbestos and cabinet replacement project would be $310,000. Are there any questions on asbestos removal? Michael?
Matt, do we have the history of the cost it was per square foot the last time that we did that, or even prior?
Yes, we do. Off the top of my head, I don't have those costs per square foot, but it's pretty consistent as far as years gone by. The price really hasn't escalated that much.
Yeah, thank you.
So are there any questions? Are we, as a board, comfortable putting forth $310,000 for asbestos removal and cabinet and replacement to the voters? So, Matt, if you could put that together?
Yep.
And we will have that to consider at a future meeting for the wording. And finally, we have, and that's something we brought up at our last meeting, 3 of the 5 of us have gone through this emergency capital, repair capital reserve. 3 of us have experienced having to use it. And that's why, as we have depleted it, sitting here for emergency reasons, thus the name, we want to make sure that we are making an effort to restore it. When we put a warrant out last year, the goal was to, we actually scaled back the amount to make it more palatable to the voter. And the way we worded it, and Matt, correct me if I'm wrong, is we would take up to $75,000 from the surplus. So instead of going back to the taxpayer, up to $75,000 would go to this emergency capital reserve, which right now is at about $150,000.
Yes.
So it would bring us up to $225,000. Michael?
Is there a policy or of the use of this reserve? Like, is there any process to actually?
Yeah, it's for emergency repairs of facilities, grounds. I believe that was the initial wording, and the school board is agents to expend. So if we want to, if we have a need, and we need to come to before the board in a regular session, present the case, and then the board would vote whether or not it would be appropriate to expend from the fund or not. So that's basically the procedure.
I think the last time we used it was for our bleachers in the high school, correct?
Correct.
Before that was the Superstorm Sandy.
Yep. And Superstorm Sandy for the deductibles, I believe we used it for?
And the lower
yeah.
ball field washed
road.
out. We had to fix that.
That's
And
around 50,000.
Or the transformer.
Transformer, yeah.
We had like
Yeah,
4.
thank you. I just wanted it outlined to the public of how it's actually the process to actually expend the money after, if it does go into the reserve.
Right. And I think what's important to remind is we do not hold a surplus. So I know that the town government, our constituents are used to hearing how the town has a surplus. I think it's $3 or $4 million. I don't have the number, so really it's, but they do have, is it $6 million? They have $6 million. We have $150,000 in that's very specific on how we can use it, and that is it. So our capital reserve funds are very, and they are few and far between. What do we have left for capital reserves? I'm putting you on the spot.
Basically, all we have is a special ed.
Special
reserve.
ed
It's
in this
around
one.
500,000, and then this one here. That's it.
So that's it. Those are our emergency funds, period. So with that, knowing that, we don't have anything what I would call imminent, but we were surprised about, I know, cross our fingers, knock on wood, but we were surprised about those bleachers. They came up at $320,000 out of left field. Well, or the seniors kind of killed them, but it was a great year for pep rallies.
Let's put it, they were nearing the end of their useful
Yep.
life, and they just need a little exuberant
they got a push.
persuasion.
They got a
So
little
that was
push.
it.
But so with that, we really are not in a great position if push comes to shove. And we as a board have committed to making sure we're not putting you in predicament by not funding it. So, are we comfortable with this amount? I think this is the amount we vetted last time. We're good? So if you could put together language for that, talking about the surplus being the case. Wow, that was fun. Okay, and no one showed up in the 32 minutes we've been meeting, so the next item on the agenda would be public participation on agenda items, which I will close because we have no public. And I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Or, I'm sorry, Andy?
I just want to make sure people understand that our next meeting, which is next Tuesday,
17th. Yep.
is when we're going to be voting on the budget. Are we going to be seeing the warrant articles for that as well, or not?
No, they won't be ready. It'll be the beginning of February.
Okay, so, but we'll be voting, taking a final vote on the operating budget at that meeting. So that's sort of when we close our budget activities, other than the review of the warrant articles. I just want people to be aware, watching from home.
Yes. So the 17th is it. It will be a regular board meeting. That's a good reminder. It is a Tuesday because we are closed Monday for Martin Luther King Day. And it will be at Mastrocola Elementary School. I'm sorry, Mastrocola Elementary School. Oh, wow, you almost threw me a loop there. So it'll be at the all-purpose room at Mastrocola Elementary School. And because this room will be used for our planning board purposes, so we have been, we are unable to use these facilities. Because it's at Mastrocola Elementary School, it will not be live. The infrastructure is not there to broadcast live from that facility. So it will be taped and rebroadcast. So if there's anyone that has feedback, they will absolutely want to be at Mastrocola, 7 o'clock on Tuesday the 17th. So thanks for bringing that up. I would have wrapped it very messily. Michael? There will be dialing in. Over at Mastrocola.
Less than optimal conditions, but we'll see if we can make it work. Yeah.
So is there capabilities to dial in at
Yes,
Mastrocola?
we have done it at Mastrocola Elementary School before.
Okay.
Yep.
Good, okay.
Not optimal like this room
Yep.
here, but it can be
There you
done. Tough, yeah.
So we will do our best to facilitate, but it will be there, which is a little tougher usually, but we'll get it done. It's after JMU's, we're not going to use that place again. So we are good. So with that, I guess we're now ready for a motion to adjourn. Made by Andy. Is there a second? Seconded by Cinda. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, none. The motion carries 5-0-0. Thank you and good night.